All right, this is Bob Bickle with RunSignup, and today's webinar we're going to be talking about the coronavirus and what's going on with our customers and what we're trying to do to help everybody during this very trying time. So I'm going to start off and go through kind of the timeline from my perspective of what we've done here at RunSignup. So obviously we've all been kind of following what was happening in China in January and February, and we wrote our first blog post on this on February 27th. At that time, I think there were 60 cases in the United States and about 400 in Italy. And we suggested that races put together a plan for what might happen if coronavirus struck. At the time of that writing, we had no idea that it would blow up to be as big as it is. On March 1st, that was our first weekly stats report. And at that point in time, we were measuring all of the races that were happening in 2019 and 2020 on RunSignup that got registrations during the course of that week from Sunday through Saturday. And that first week, that year-over-year comparison was actually up 3%. At that point in time, RunSignup's business overall was up 29% from January to early March. So things were kind of going along pretty well. It was Friday, March 6th, that I read this article from a UK mathematician, statistician, and I finally understood the math. And I said to myself, holy cow, this is going to be really, really big. That weekend, I called some of my friends that are in investment circles, called my buddy Sasha, who's the founder of CloudBees, a couple of fellow board members and so forth, respected people and so forth, to get their opinions on what was going on and what the potential implications could be. And so I came in the following Monday, that's the 9th, kind of ready to make pretty drastic changes at RunSignup, feeling that this was going to be a tsunami. We did a bunch of communications on that Monday and Tuesday, and we also we were kind of trying to build a set of tools so that you'd be able to communicate with your customers. And then we also changed our policies in terms of payouts to build reserves, and I'll talk about that more in depth in a little bit here. We got blasted pretty bad by a number of customers. It's funny, some of those early blasts, I was on a phone call for about half an hour having a customer yell at me. His account actually just went negative yesterday for his race in terms of chargebacks. But we posted a blog on Wednesday trying to explain to the world why we're moving so fast. And these days seem like weeks or months. Coronavirus time is just really flying by in many ways with how fast things are changing and everything. So on the 11th through 12th, we posted a website, runsignup.com/coronavirus, with a set of tools and common learnings and ideas on how to put a plan together and things like that, to try to help customers. That Friday is when the U.S. declared the state of emergency. I remember that Saturday, my wife and I went out golfing and practiced good social distancing during that golfing. And after the golfing, our friends said, hey, let's go out to dinner. And I said no. At that point in time, even like a week and a half ago, like the average person didn't really understand the impact of what was going to be coming and so forth. I just did not want to be inside of a restaurant sitting close to other people and things like that. I'd say by that Sunday, next Monday, people really started to understand. States and so forth started really shutting down in great earnest and urgency. So let me first talk about the big picture of kind of the industry risks and trends and so forth. So the number one problem that we all have is a revenue problem. So we've seen, just this is a stat from, say, the past 3 or 4 days, an 81% drop in revenue. And so if a race had been expecting $1,000 coming in, they're seeing more like $200 coming in. And it's actually more than that for traditional races, because more than half of the revenue that's coming in currently, like of the transaction volume that came in yesterday, was for virtual races. So a traditional, 5K or half marathon or triathlon or whatever is just not seeing much revenue at all. And it's not just the races that are scheduled for March and April and May. We're seeing this across the board. So there is some registration volume for races in November or whatever, but the registration volume for races that are scheduled for November at this time of year is actually lower than it is normally. We're seeing a number of race organizations react to this with layoffs, furloughs, shifting people to part-time, and there's just an increasing number of pretty sad stories that are out there. Later at the end of this presentation and on that coronavirus, RunSignup.com coronavirus website, we've got a bunch of links, and we're actually building a bunch of those out today and tomorrow. We've got some new links and so forth to share to try to help races, race organizations and nonprofits seek help in terms of potentially loans. Also links to try to help people find where they can collect unemployment compensation as the federal package comes out and information comes from them. Supposedly there's a provision in there where basically the state unemployment checks will be supplemented and increased by this new federal emergency program that's being put in place. Also, the federal emergency program is introducing some set of loans and forgiveness of loans and things like that for being able to keep people on staff. That data is not really, we're not seeing that tangibly. Like, I can't tell you a website to go to. I can tell you that I went to the SBA website and it's crashed. And today, I think the message is that they're down for maintenance. So just like everything, I think there's a lot of scrambling, a lot of hard work trying to figure out what to do. But there is going to be a lot of frustration out there. And the number one problem is this revenue drop. The number two problem, and it could be the number one problem for a number of race organizations, is that there's a leak in the boat. So the credit card network, the way that was set up, and the whole premise behind it, all the contracts, all the fiduciary responsibilities of the players in that, basically it's a contract between a buyer and a seller. And the buyer is giving their credit card in hopes of receiving the goods or service that they're purchasing. The credit card network basically guarantees, to everybody's benefit in the credit card network under usual circumstances, that buyer is protected if the seller does not deliver the good or service as promised. And what that means is that a credit card holder can issue what's called a chargeback. when you look at it from an accounting type of perspective, registrations should actually be categorized, and I don't know how you all do it on your own income statements and so forth, and balance sheets, but registration revenue that's coming in should be coded as a liability on your balance sheet, and it should not be turned, removed until the service is delivered. So basically, what happens in a race, you open up a race that's going to happen on May 1st, you take registrations on March 1st, you're actually obligated and liable for that registration fee. That's really not your money yet. And I know people don't like to hear that, but that is the fundamental structure of the credit card network. So the final point I'll make on here is that we've had about a half a dozen races in our history that were canceled and kind of badly canceled. In two cases, the owners went bankrupt and basically did not communicate at all to their participants, and there were local news TV spots on these situations where the newscaster would educate the consumers to say that they can get their money back by simply doing the chargeback on their Visa cards. In those sorts of situations, we've seen 40% chargeback rates. That should be rate instead of race at the end of that. RunSignup chargebacks and financial policies. So this is what we're doing. So when chargebacks happen, we are challenging every one of them right now. We're not necessarily hopeful that the challenge will be successful because the basic premise of the credit card, transaction is that the good or service is delivered as promised. So the fact that a race is delayed or turned into virtual, or only you get swag but don't get the experience, that all changes what the promised delivery was. And the credit card network and Visa and MasterCard and so forth we're thinking that they're probably going to side on the side of the credit card holder. We're challenging anyway to see if we can get by that, and we're also trying to initiate lobbying efforts. We put out a sample letter for customers to send to their Congress people about giving time to on those chargebacks to basically not process chargebacks for events. But we've not seen anything substantive from that. We are in collaboration with organizations like Roadrunners Club of America, Running USA, and others try to push for lobbying efforts in that regard. But right now we're not actually super hopeful. And as we collect more information back, we'll see what we do on that, whether we continue to challenge delays for or cancellations for coronavirus. The problem with chargebacks is that there's actually a $7.50 fee on top of the refund. So if somebody paid you $35 for the race registration, it's the $35 plus the $7.50. If the challenge fails, you're basically out of that. Also, when a chargeback comes through, and I'll show you on the next page, the moment the chargeback comes through, that comes out of your merchant bank account. So what we do when that happens is, and I'll show you a page here in a second, we actually record those chargebacks so you can see them on your financial summary page. So if you go to your race page and financial summary and you look at the adjustments page, you'll see the chargebacks if you have any in there. We're going to be improving that page and improving the information, improving the reporting over the next couple of days. So you'll start to see kind of more quantified reporting, and some of the data I'll show you on the next page will appear for you. What the other thing that we've done is we started to send notifications to race directors. I think that got turned on Friday or Saturday this past week to ask the registrant to reverse the charge, and I'll talk more about that in a little bit. Once we challenge a chargeback, we await an answer on that, and the answer can come back up to 90 days later. So everything in the chargeback network is kind of slow and somewhat manual. So this is what Sue and Elizabeth and others are looking at when they review a chargeback in our system. So they see a bunch of information on what the case is, and this is a link, hot link, that puts them right into the kind of the banking system that we use to view the chargeback within the banking system. This allows them to go and see the transaction and to see the cases and the communication basically that's been going back and forth between everybody. This column here shows what the consumer is complaining about. So they've said it's a canceled merchandise or service. Over here on the right-hand side, you'll see that there's information, and these links really help us in terms of communicating and filing the challenge to the chargeback. So when the chargeback is issued in IQ, we basically can copy and paste both your waiver and your refund policy into the financial system to make our case and say, but there's a clear no refund policy. There's a clear waiver that's been signed on, March 1st at 12:15 p.m., at this IP address and stuff. So all of that stuff is recorded as best as we can. And previously our success rate was probably in the 75 to 80% range when we fought these, because there's clear refund policies, but those, we're questioning whether those are valid in this type of situation. Down here is kind of interesting information. So this, the bank processed this on Sunday, March 22nd, and WorldPay, which is our payment processor, received it that same day. This person has a JP Morgan Chase bank card of some sort. You'll see that on up here, the 3/23, so Monday is when we processed and sent them back the challenge to this. Down here is a deadline to reply by date. We typically always challenge these chargebacks either same day or next day. And we've been working on weekends as well to try to make sure that we keep up with the volume and do not get behind on any of this. So how do vendors handle chargeback liability? So all payment processors protect themselves. And basically the way they protect themselves is that they do holdbacks and reserves. So, and I've experienced this personally myself twice. So when RunSignup first started up, we used PayPal as our payment processing, and they locked down all of our, all of our accounts, and they kept all of our money. And so we had to clarify our policies and stuff like that, and went to a different processor. In PNC, at PNC, our volume in 2012 was escalating quickly. We were growing rapidly, and they put a freeze on a segment of our funds. So they froze about a month of our transaction volume, and they wanted to keep that on a consistent basis to protect themselves in case there were problems. As you know, many of the people at RunSignup came from RaceIt. In 2011, one of the things that triggered them being acquired is that their payment processor asked them to put a reserve of $4 million into their reserve. on behalf of all their customers. And they didn't have that money, and so that was one of the things that triggered the sale of Raceit. What they do is they have all these automated systems that watch the chargeback rates and will adjust the reserve. Typically our chargeback rate has been extraordinarily low. I think I've shared in the past that we had maybe 20 chargebacks a week out of 150,000 new transactions. That's a very low rate. Runners are typically really nice people. They typically don't do chargebacks, and races usually go forward. And even in the event of bad weather, a lot of people, continue on and go to a new date and things like that. A lot of payment processors, and actually a number of the vendors in the race registration business, will pool all of their money together. And if there are losses, they'll kind of fund the float. And, the big, great example of that is Race Partner a couple of years ago, where they basically were using their float. So they kept kind of delaying their payments. And in delaying the payments, they basically had float that they could use, and kind of using money from Peter to pay Paul. Eventbrite has recently changed their payment policy. So they have moved all customers to a process where they have no advance payments. So they're going to hold all ticket sale revenue at Eventbrite and not pay any out to customers until 5 business days after their event happens. So this is a pretty drastic move by a pretty big company. And I think you're going to see a lot more of this sort of thing. RunSignup, even though I feel personally really, really bad about recognizing the size of the impact of this on everybody, I didn't really get it until March 6th. I think other companies are still just about trying to get it. And, part of the benefit of RunSignup is that we're able to move extraordinarily fast. We just have incredible people, and we've just moved a lot faster than everybody. Let me talk a little bit about RunSignup payback model. The easy way to explain this is you can think of us as like a branch bank, and each payment account has a merchant bank account. So each person you see going into their typical branch bank has their own bank account and stuff like that. The same is exactly true with us. So each payment account has a merchant bank account. We, as RunSignup, and in our payback model, becoming a payback is really hard. You have to implement all these processes, all this technology. But it's a model I wanted to go to in 2015 is when we moved to this model because of those previous experiences. I wanted to make things really clean. I didn't want to hold all of our customers' money into one account or anything and be tempted to use the float or anything like that. As being a payback, our level of compliance requirements is actually higher than other types of payment processing mechanisms that are used in the marketplace. We have legal and fiduciary responsibilities to uphold the rules of the credit card network, and we included in that is to make sure that merchants are held liable for what they have promised for their credit card holders. By having these different bank accounts, we cannot borrow from Peter to pay Paul. It just can't happen in the way that we handle the money. So what we've done and what we started to institute and clarified, over the past 2 weeks, we instituted this on Tuesday, March 10th, I guess that was, is So pre-race, we've instituted a 10% reserve requirement on all payment accounts and 20% on each race. So let me go through a couple of examples so you understand that. Say you're brand new to the RunSignup platform, just put one race up there. You get $100 in registrations. The next week, we're going to pay you $80 of that, and we're going to keep $20 in your merchant bank account as a reserve in case there are chargebacks in the future. If you're a longtime user of RunSignup and you have a payment account and you have, say, 10 races, the same is going to hold true. For each one of those races, we're going to look to have a 20% reserve. Part of the problem is that you might have had a race that happens on April 1st, and you had received maybe 90% of the registration revenue. So basically, we're going to try to, whatever new revenue comes in, we're going to try to hold in reserve until you get to that 20% mark. So as an example, say you've been paid $9,000 already in registration fees. What's going to happen is that another $1,000 comes in of registration. That means that it's a total of $10,000 collected. So we'll seek to hold $2,000. Because that $1,000 doesn't meet that $2,000 threshold of the desired reserve amount, there will be no payment to you. Once you get over that $2,000, then it would be an 80-20 split going forward. Because races are at different stages, so you have that example where a race has $9,000, and it's all been paid to them, and then there's another race that organization has in the fall, and that race in the fall is going to be at 20%, but it's likely that people are going to be more likely to register for that race. And so we will hold more than 20% until the time that the entire payment account is at 10%. And that 10 and 20% is based upon just the registration fees. It's not based upon donations. So if you set up a pure donation type of a website, 100% of the donations are going to flow through. Now, and the same with memberships as well. The first weekend of the coronavirus was the weekend of the 14th, 15th. That weekend, and right after then, we didn't know what races had happened or didn't happen. We didn't know what races were going to have a chargeback issue and which were not. So what we did on that Tuesday is when we typically make payments. That Tuesday, we actually put out communication. I think we might have put it out on Monday, the 15th. I think the communication that we put out was that we're delaying payments for up to 30 days while we build systems and put them in place to be able to figure out what races happened and what races will have risk of chargeback. We are getting very close to completing that system, and idea is that hopefully by the end of this week and on Monday of next week, we'll have all the races that happened that weekend completely reviewed, and that new system and process will go into place, and races that say successfully happened on the 14th will get paid. Now, we have this mechanism that we've put in place for post-race reserves. So we can't necessarily pay a race out because there might be chargebacks on it still, because chargebacks can happen. Some charge cards allow up to 2 years for chargebacks to be claimed, and we have seen chargebacks from race registrations from 2 years ago. But what we're going to be doing is basically we've got an internal rubric that's based upon data that we're able to see and collect. So an example might be this, you put up finisher results. We're going to check finisher results and see that, X% of the people that signed up for the race actually finished. And that is data that we can collect and is meaningful for that weekend of the 14th and 15th. Right now, that data is kind of not meaningful. Check-in data is kind of not meaningful because people are not going to be able to have their races in the near term here. But in any regard, we'll do the same sort of process for a race that has switched to virtual that might be happening this weekend. We'll go through that process of evaluating how much holdback there should be, and then we'll set that up. So what'll happen is that a weekend happens, so say that 14th, Tuesday, 9 days later, so that means this coming Tuesday, we'll make payments to either keep the reserve at 20% or decrease it down to 10% or 5% or 0%, depending upon the risk factor that we see. The balance is going to be paid 3 weeks later. So even if you're held at 30%, you're going to be paid out completely within 4 weeks of your race. So those two qualifiers are dependent upon there being no chargebacks during that time. If there's a chargeback during that time, the payout is going to get delayed by 3 weeks. So the problem, again, with chargebacks is that customers can file them at any point in time. And we think that there's also a fear of, as people, get laid off and so forth, they're going to be looking for places to get money. And one of the places they can get money is going back and doing chargebacks. So there's risk for everybody involved here. And again, RunSignup's responsibility is to make sure that the rules of the credit card network are maintained. So what can you do on this whole leaky boat thing? So probably the big thing to do is to communicate with your customers. We've developed some tools that allow you to communicate with your customers. We've developed a specific postponement cancellation pop-up. This is 100% customizable to you. You can choose one or multiple options. The options don't have any function to them, like they don't switch from one event to another. They don't automatically generate a refund. They produce a set of reports that you can use to then take action with them. One of the interesting things from this is that we're seeing a lot of races utilize this. I think we have almost 1,900 races or over 1,900 races now that have turned this postponement cancellation tool on. And we've seen somewhere around 50,000 people actually click on it. And we think that that process of kind of even clicking on one of these buttons is kind of like this way that they're buying into your messaging. It's a way of acknowledging that, you're in it together, right? This information is also going to be included in our chargeback, fighting type of capability. So if a customer said that they switched to a virtual, that would be included in what we reply back to the bank credit card network if that person later does a chargeback. So we've got a ton of recommendations on that runsignup.com/coronavirus. We've got a bunch of different blogs with different success stories of how people are changing their events to virtual or how they're postponing them, how they're communicating. There's a lot of sample text. Everybody is being extraordinarily helpful and really sharing on this stuff. So it's great. You'll see on your dashboard this cancel or postpone race. There's a growing set of tools here for people. So we just talked about the postponement tool. There's also an email tool that can be used. It's a one-time email. If you have more email to do, utilize the email marketing system. This was meant to be kind of a quick email that you could put out that communicated whatever you put into your postponement messaging and the options and things like that. We've just in the past day or two added a survey that you as the race director can tell us what the status of your race is. This is incredibly important for post-race analysis and release of funds. So the more information you can provide us and the more you can show that your runners have accepted this type of thing, the better it helps us to pay you faster. The other thing I just wanted to come back to this. So these reserve requirements that we have in place right now, I think are extraordinary. I think that this shall pass, right? And I don't know how long that will be, and I don't know how long it will be until we get significant data, but we are seeing a 10x volume increase in the chargebacks that are flowing through. My hope is that, over the coming weeks or months, we decrease this back very low and potentially to nil again, as we have done in the past. But during this extraordinary time, we kind of are forced to take this type of measure. The other tool that we've done, and I mentioned it earlier, is chargeback notifications. So race directors are now receiving an automated notification whenever we process a chargeback, and it looks like the little thing at the right, and it links to the transaction info, so you can see exactly what's going on and when that person signed up and all that kind of stuff, and it includes a template email or phone script, so you can easily reach out to the participant. And we're actually seeing initial success with this already. So I think we released this tool on Friday or Saturday, like I said. It's a thank you that we just got from a race director. So she had reached out to the person that had processed a chargeback, and the person that had processed a chargeback said, "Oh, geez, I'm sorry about that," and did a reversal. So what we're hoping is that with this notification to race directors, you can take personal action to the people that are processing the chargebacks, explain the situation, try to make them happy, and try to get them to reverse their chargebacks. If they do reverse their chargeback, that actually flows through the system, and you'll see a positive adjustment on your accounts. Again, runsignup.com/coronavirus. It's our central place to communicate all things. In this, it has a ton of different templates. It has a ton of different use cases. It has some templates for plans and so forth. The team here at RunSignup has just been doing amazing things. Johanna is in the process of putting this information up on the coronavirus website that we have. There's some really good resources for information. Eventbrite has a page that is quite good for event organizers, and basically they got a lot of their information from the ETA, the Electronic Transaction Association, and we are actually in process of putting up basically the same information to everybody. So there will be state-specific information on that page, and we'll continue to iterate on that as well. But if there's one bright spot in this whole thing, it's how people are kind of pulling together to try to help each other. It's encouraging to see our government take substantive action to try to blunt the impact on people. So anyway, I'm gonna open it up for questions now. Johanna, do you? Hold on. I have more. I forget. I forget, I have more. RunSignup development. So what you're going to see over the coming days, so you're going to see more and more financial data show up on your dashboards and so forth. The chargeback notifications are going well. We're actually going to include chargeback notifications when they turn positive as well. So you'll have hopefully some positive news coming back to you with that. We removed the $1 refund fee that RunSignup has traditionally charged on processing refunds. For races that want to be proactive, they have a runner that's calling in and threatening to charge back. It does save you $7.50 to issue a refund rather than to take a chargeback. Virtual races, we've been doing a ton of stuff on this. We've restructured RaceJoy, and the Ann Arbor Marathon actually did this past weekend. So they've opened up the course and made it available on RaceJoy. So anybody can go at any point in time during this entire week, go to the start line, press the little start button on RaceJoy, get their mile splits, hear cheers from people that are watching them, get messages that are posted from the race director and from sponsors and so forth. There is a webinar tomorrow, I guess, talking about virtual events. There's also a training next week for timers, so they can get certified to deliver this. So we're putting out a lot of different resources to help with this. We also have enabled virtual results to be posted. So individuals can post their results virtually. That capability is going to continue to improve over the coming couple of weeks. There's a team that's working on adding a virtual bib. So like we've had this finisher certificate capability for quite a while. What we're going to do is upgrade that finisher certificate capability and make both a pre-race and a post-race type of, so pre-race bib, post-race certificate available and easy and kind of with better graphics and things like that. So we're doing a lot there. There's a webinar tomorrow at 4 o'clock for nonprofits. Our GiveSignup product is really awfully nicely designed to try to make donations easy. And we have this capability in GiveSignup called donation forms that is perfect for emails and so forth. It's think of it as a replacement for the typical PayPal button that kind of looks crappy and doesn't include your brand and has kind of a wacky process to it. It doesn't give the capability to allow the donor to pay the processing fee and things like that. So there'll be a good webinar tomorrow on that. Fundraising campaigns, there's a webinar that we had done a little bit ago where you could have virtual events that have fundraising campaigns associated with them. So we're providing hopefully lots of ideas and tools for the nonprofit community as a part of this as well. With that, I'll take questions. Johanna, do you have questions? I'm not tracking them.
Yep. Yeah. So just to clarify really quickly on webinars that you went over, tomorrow's webinar on RaceJoy for virtual races is specifically for certified timers. We do have a recording of how that product works that is for everyone that race directors can also take a look at that I will include in the follow-up email here. And then on sometime next week, hopefully we should have a new one up with some more information on more virtual race stuff for pretty much anyone. So let's start with questions. Are we still likely to lose a chargeback if the waiver explicitly states that the runner agrees there are no refunds?
Yes, you are very likely to, especially if it's a Visa card. We actually just yesterday started getting denials on our challenges with Visa. And those were specifically races that had very clear no refund policies, and we had submitted it as that it was a COVID-19, postponement and things like that. So the early results are not looking so good.
All right. We are looking to postpone and not cancel. How do we move registrations to a future date without losses or charges?
The easiest way to do that is just to go into the Race Wizard and change the dates of the event. It's really easy to do. And then what you want to do is you want to use the postponement tool so that you can put up a really nice, clear message about when the new date is, why it got moved, how you're taking care of all customers. Anybody that's registered stays in the race. They don't have to do anything. They're still in the 5K or the 10K or whatever they were. And that actually registration's open for new participants to join us in October or whenever.
And if you don't have that date set yet, how does that impact that?
What I would do is I would put a TBD in the postponement tool. So inside the postponement tool, there's a future date. And in that future date, you can put TBD. And what that does is it basically covers up all of the other dates. If you have a rough date that you're going to move out to, like September or something like that, and your race is in, say it's scheduled for this weekend or something, you might want to change the date on it, because once a race goes past the scheduled date, you have to renew that, and then you'd have to basically kind of manually move the participants that were already registered into next year's race. You can do that. It's just a couple of steps that you have to do, but it's still easier to kind of just delay the date, set TBD in the postponement tool, and that will hide all the dates that show publicly.
Once you've rescheduled a date, should you leave the pop-up active on your race page through the original date?
I would,
How long would you
and I would use it as a way. Yeah, I would. I would use it as a way to communicate, and giving people a way to click on something and just say, I'm supporting the cause, and I'm still in the race, and I'm still here to be part of the Scott Coffee run. I would leave the postponement tool up, and you can also view it as a way to collect data as well. So you can kind of change those little option menus to kind of be anything that you want.
We're issuing a partial refund on entry fees and also asking for a donation of entry fees. Can we issue an additional refund on the add-on to purchasers of the add-on?
I'm not quite sure I understand that.
Yeah.
Do you, Johanna?
I'm not sure what they mean by partial refund. I think the question of can they refund an add-on only to people who paid for the add-on is relevant.
Yeah, you can do kind of bulk refunds. It sounds like what you want to do is something a little bit more customized. So you might be better off kind of segmenting off into a spreadsheet and kind of segmenting a set of users that bought add-ons and didn't buy add-ons, and then utilizing the bulk refund tool in kind of a slightly different way with the people that bought add-ons and the people that didn't buy add-ons. So, give $20 back to the people that didn't buy add-ons and give $30 back to the people that did buy add-ons. So that's probably the way that's you're best at doing that. So use the view participant report, get the columns that you want, export that into a spreadsheet, and then divide that into 2 spreadsheets, and then take the registration ID and those registration IDs in each spreadsheet you'll put into the bulk refund tool. We can write up a blog on that too.
Can we elect to have the amount in our reserve increased? For example, we have an event that's canceled and anticipate 100% refunds. Can we just increase that so that no money is paid out?
Absolutely. So you can go into, just type reserve on the upper left-hand search of the menu. And in that page, you'll see how much is in the reserve, and you'll be able to increase that. You'll be able to set your own reserve. You'll also see on that page a way to add via credit card, or you can wire us funds, and we'll put those into your bank account. If you wire us funds, make sure you send an email with the amount that you're wiring in to finance@runsignup.com. We've had a number of customers that have wired funds in yet, and like one wire transfer that I saw yesterday or the day before was like, it was just like running club or something like that. It was a very generic term that was hard to figure out. When we get wires in, I don't know if y'all do wires or not, but wires are very cryptic in terms of the amount of information that they provide. So if you send us email, that way we're guaranteed to make sure that it's in the right place.
We have a race that is going from live to virtual, but it's staying on the same date. Do we need to create a new race?
No, not at all. I would just use the postponement tool and explain what's going on. I would suggest that you go into the events and edit the description of the different events, and go into your race content and explain what's going on and why you're doing that and why this is good for everybody. Virtual events is the big thing that people are doing. It's the number one button that people click on that postponement tool. I'm sure all of you, like I'm dialing in from home here. Sure, most of you are at home right now, and you probably go for walks like I do or jogs, and there's just a ton of people running and walking out there. It's actually one of my great hopes is that this winds up being very healthy for our communities and our various races and so forth. I think there'll be more of an emphasis on healthy living. I think that our type of activity is a lot better. People are going to come back to our type of activity before they go to the movies or before they go to restaurants. There's kind of natural social distancing that you can do. We've had races set up for the fall where they have corral limits of 10 people, and they have like 10 minutes in between each corral. So the race that they're setting up is automatically set up for social distancing, which is great, and we can do that, and people can be outside, and I think people, after being inside their houses, are going to be ready to go outside and run some races.
So just to clarify one thing, because this has come up in a couple of the questions, even though the tool is called the postponement tool, it does not mean that you have to postpone. We maybe could have used a different name there, but it's too late for that. So that is what a lot of people use it for, but it does not require you to postpone.
Yeah, and the thing about it is that it's the beauty in it is it's simple. Like you can make it whatever you want. You can make it we're having this race early tool. Yeah.
Our 5K is going to be all virtual, and there are only a handful of registrants before we converted it to virtual. Is it better to still allow refunds so we don't risk an additional $750 chargeback fee?
I would, if you have the funds available, I would offer refunds, because it does keep things cleaner. The problem with refunds is that you refund everybody. The potential benefit of chargebacks is that a lot of people don't know how to complete them or something. So you could have like lower costs. Yeah.
Just generally speaking,
just a second, Johanna. Allison was just commenting that one of the things you may want to do is include a contact email or something for people with special circumstances. So like I may feel that I'm really special and I deserve a refund, even though there's a no refund policy. If I reach out and I seem like a person that's gonna file a chargeback, then you as the race director it's probably beneficial to do it the other way and to do a refund. It does save you the $750.
Do we need to have the refunds in our RunSignup reserve account before we can do refunds, or will it just get pulled automatically from our bank account?
No, we have no ability to pull from your regular bank account. So that was one of the decisions we made early on, is to try to keep things very clean and separate. In retrospect, as some of our customers go negative on their chargebacks and reserves, that's bad. No, you have to fund the refund reserve, and that it's the same reserve, and the reserve can be used for refunds and or chargebacks. And if you have multiple races and you want to pull from one race to another, we can facilitate that as well.
And is there a way on a tab or in your account to see the total amount that's being held in reserve?
Yes, if you go up to the search menu and click on reserve, you'll see how much is being held. The other place to look is that if you go into your financial summary page, you'll see, one of the items on the left-hand side, one of the major items is called holdbacks. Holdbacks is the same as reserves. They're, kind of the same thing. So if you click on that, you'll see the holdbacks. And just below holdbacks is the adjustments, and that's where you'll see the chargebacks coming in and out.
And if you have multiple races or a partner account, are you seeing that only on each individual race, or is that a partner level view?
It's on an individual race view. The best place to look is on your payment account. So we've added some reports and buttons and some more information on your payment account screen. It's not the prettiest screen around, but all of the information is there. One of the nice things on the payment account screen that we added is on the right-hand side, it will include a list of your races, and it will show how much reserve is in each of those races.
All right. I think that covers most of the ones that are applicable to people generally. There are a lot of questions that are more specific to individuals that aren't here, and we will follow up with you by email if we didn't get to your question or if we just missed it. I'll also make sure we send out a lot of the links that we talked about today and the slides along with the recording this afternoon. I think that is all the questions for now.
Great. Yeah, just, it's a really tough time for everybody. Things are tough here. Things are tough with you all. It's a really hard time. I do have complete, kind of faith in recovery from all of this. The world and humans are very adaptable. Been through bubonic plague and been through Spanish flu and the swine flu, been through World War I, World War II, our own countries, been at civil war with ourselves. And and yet still we all have iPhones in our pockets and have made progress as humans. And this too shall pass, and we want to be there with you, help you get through it, and I'm convinced that we'll all come back stronger and better as a result of this. Thanks for everybody's time, and thanks for your support. We really do appreciate it.